Welcome back to This is Jack's. Going to do a quick market update for you today. We're in January, so we've got all of the data basically from last year in at this point. It's always nice when you're in January and you're looking at the market data because you get to see all of last year. Updates every month on the 10th. So we're going to be talking about December a lot. And if you're watching this, you're listening, you might be kind of saying, why are we talking about December when it's January? I want to know, well, that December, the data lags. We got to watch the data, learn from it, kind of formulate it. And then by February, we're looking at January data. So it's always a month or so behind, but January, we get to kind of look at it as a whole. We'll talk about an overview of the current Jacksonville market, what's going on. And then we'll talk about some national versus local trends. So this is Jax. We're going to dive right into market stats here. Welcome to This is Jax, a hyper-local podcast. We're going to do our best. We're going to bring on successful business owners, the people who drive the cities, share a lot about what makes our city so great. So you can be confident and comfortable. This is a city that you want to call home. We've got a median price improvement. All right, so where I'm at right now, I'm looking at the NEFAR page. This is Northeast Florida Association of Realtors. This is the data we track from homes that have sold. And we can both look at this as like a 13-month review or a year-to-date review, which is pretty cool. So I'm looking specifically at Duval County, which is the city of Jacksonville. We can also look at all of Northeast Florida on a whole, which we will do. But our median sales price for Jacksonville, the month of December, was $339,000. It was actually up 4.1% from November. It went from 325 up to 339. So it's a little bit of an increase. And if we look year to date, December 2023 going into 2024, prices were at 325 and they are up to 339. So we definitely saw a 4.3%. That means if you bought a home at the end of 2023 and you're wondering, I wonder how much my equity grew throughout the year, it grew about 4.3% here in Duval. Closed sales were down overall last year, which we knew they would be. We've talked about this over and over again. Median days on market was 33. It was down 8%. So went from 36 to 33. If you're a seller and you're hitting the market, that's not really a big difference to you. So about the same. List price received. So we're looking at homes that got 97.2%. So most of the people who are working with agents and putting their home on the market are actually putting a pretty good price on their home. So we're like to see that data. Active listings though, new listings. For 2024, we saw 16,000 listings in Jacksonville alone in 2024. That's insane. 16,000 homes when you think about it. So definitely a lot of homes selling. When I look at month supply, we actually went down. November, we were looking at about 5%, and we were seeing it trend up. We saw August 3-month supply of inventory. September, a 4-month supply, right at 4 in October, up to 5 in November. And then it just jumped down in December to 3.5 month supply. So the market is starting to pick up. Remember, we talked about this. The election cycle had people slowing down and then it picked up. So 3.5%, a little bit of a seller's market. It might seem crazy because there's homes sitting on the market, but we'll talk in a future episode. I want to talk about what I call the real estate love triangle, which has to do with the price, condition, and location of a home. It's hard to get all three of those. I've been talking to a lot of sellers and buyers about that, but when you see month supply inventory 3.5, you know you're leaning towards a seller's market. So what's going on in the world today? I'm looking at this. Mortgage rates jump sharply higher after jobs report. This is by Matthew Graham, posted on Mortgage News Daily. So this is not the news that everybody wants to hear. Looking at them jump up, and the average top tier 30-year fixed rate is closer to 7.125, up almost centered at 7.25%. So still up there quite a ways. And I've actually got another report that I'm looking at. Home price forecast. Here we go. 2025 30-year fixed mortgage rate forecast. Average of all 9, this is Redfin, CoreLogic, Wells Fargo, MBA, Mortgage Bankers Association, Fannie Mae, Moody's Analytics, Bright MLS, Realtor.com, and the NAHB. The average is 6.36. This is what they forecast for the average 30-year rate. So nobody really sees it coming down much further. So we're at 7.25. It might come down to 6. 6.12 is the lowest, the NAHB, but Redfin's projecting as 6.8. So that's the state of the market. We see movement starting to pick up. We see higher interest rates, but still a healthy market here in Jacksonville where homes are being sold. I do want to kind of compare some national versus local trends. I also have a home price forecaster, which was pretty interesting. I was looking at it, and it turns out that the average price overall in the nation is $400,000, and we're at $329,000. So when you just look at that, we can say, hey, Jacksonville is a pretty affordable place to live compared to the national average. You know, our homes are a little bit cheaper than what we got there. And then we still have a lot of traffic moving here. Still have what I would think is basically a shortage of homes that leads to that month supply. That 3.5 month supply tells us we've got a shortage of inventory. We want to see that around 5 or 6. And I know we see a lot of builds in Jacksonville. However, we're still seeing that shortage, still on the recovery from that recession in the early 2000s where home building basically stopped. And then as people were starting to qualify for homes again, there just weren't enough homes available for the people who qualified for them. So that's kind of your market update. It's pretty short, pretty cut and dry. We're starting to see, prices come up still, and we're seeing days on market stay about the same. And the month supply of inventory, 3.5. So those are the big things. We can go ahead and get into that real estate love triangle a little bit. I've got some transactions, and without naming names or details of the transactions, a lot of times when we're trying to formulate how do we make the right offer for a property, we look at a couple different things. First of all, the buyer, they're looking for a whole list of certain things, but the big 3 is the location, the price, and the condition of the home. Location is important. People are looking for a place that's got a good proximity to work, to their schools, amenities, things like lifestyles. Are they looking to take their kids to the park, or are they into fitness? So they want gyms nearby. Do they want a 5-minute commute, or do they want a 30-minute commute? So they're looking for that. There's a lot of different pockets of Jacksonville within our city where people want to be. Some people want to be in the Riverside area. They want to walk to dinner. They want to take a golf cart or whatever. Others want to live in a community. There's a community called Nocatee, which is, now we're getting into St. John's. I know St. John's County, but Northeast Florida, Jacksonville as a whole. There's a lot of people who live down in Nocatee that make the commute up to Jacksonville, right? They commute further. So the commute's not the big thing, but the time with their family, the schools, the water park that's down there, that's more important to them than walking to dinner, right? So you've got different demographics and different needs. We also talk about the price. The price is important. It must align with their budget. First of all, you've got to talk to your mortgage broker, and you've got to figure out what you're qualified for. And just because you should or could get a mortgage doesn't mean you should at a certain amount. So there's always that as well, right? But it has to align with their budget and the perceived value of the property. What price is sitting on this home? And I'm going to talk about this more in depth. Local insights, they're looking for price sense. A buyer is not going to overpay in a certain part of town. Some parts of town are higher than others. I just looked at Duval. The average price point was $339. But when I look at Clay County, the average price point is $400. So a little bit higher for the homes that sold, which is crazy. It used to be kind of the other way around. And then the condition. This is important. The physical state of the home. It affects buyers' interests and potential future investments. Sometimes a buyer might be looking for a home that needs a little bit of work because they understand the value of sweat equity. They maybe have the skills or the resources to do that. And so they can say, hey, I'll buy this home that's a little bit less than average condition. I'll put the work into it. I'll put a little bit of money into it. And then later I might be able to sell that property and get a good ROI on it. You never know. So those things are all location, price, and condition. They're all very different to each buyer because some, like I said, just a quick recap, some might want a shorter commute. Others might value, living in the suburbs away from the city with their family. Some might want a house that needs a little bit of work. Others might want it move-in ready. But the one that most people can align on is price, right? And so to get into the details of currently working out a deal where we submitted an offer, and there was a particular house we're looking at, a little below average. So the price was right on. If we just look on paper, the price is actually spot on. But then we look at it and it's been on the market 180 days. Now, when I look in this exact area and I say, well, how many homes sold in that community during that 180 days? And I look at it and I'm like, wow, 20 homes have sold in 180 days. 20 homes have sold in this neighborhood, but this one hasn't even got any offers yet. All right. What was the average days on market? I started looking at that. Turns out the average days on market was 50 days. So a month and a half. So this micro market is moving a little bit slower because we just talked about how the average day on market was 30. So we already know, okay, this market moves a little bit slower. So let's start looking at the conditions of these homes. There it is. So there's no amenities in this neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood, older style homes. The condition of these homes, a little bit below average. These houses actually are, pretty far. We're talking $100,000 plus under that average for the county. So start looking at that. If they're priced $100,000 below the average price, that means the condition is probably going to be slightly below the average price. And it means as far as the location goes, it might not be the most desirable part of town for whatever reason that is. It's subjective to each buyer, but there's no community amenities here. Those are really popular nowadays. People want that neighborhood pool, want neighborhood boat park, storage or whatever it is. And so we take all that into account. But this particular home, we look at it and we're, hey man, this house has been on the market 180 days. It's never gone under contract. Average days on market in this community is 50 days. So it's been on the market pretty much 3 times longer than any other home. And we went in it and it's a nice house. It has a lot of potential, but the condition just isn't right. And we've went into some other houses that, the condition was a little bit better. But even them, they weren't perfect. We understand that again, at this price point and in this location we're looking at, that's the standard. But this particular house basically fit the needs of the buyer the most. And what we did notice was, it has the most potential, and you're pretty handy and pretty good at DIY, and some bigger ticket items like the roof are a little bit newer. So we don't have to worry about that. We can take care of the things inside on our own. And so we made an offer, which I think was a pretty fair offer. I try to make fair offers, not ridiculous offers. We take all this stuff into account and try to empathize with the seller. And we understand that, if we offer $10,000 under the ask price, well, for us, that's, $60 a month as a buyer, because if you're financing it. So $60 a month, that's 2 trips to fast food nowadays. So cut those out and you're fine. But that's a $10,000 check to the seller. So the money, the way it comes in and the ways it goes out are different. But on this property, we offered $5,000 below the ask price. And so that's a difference of about $32 a month, in all honesty, for the buyer. So it's not killing them, but it's $5,000 to the seller. Well, what happened was we did get countered, and we got countered at full price. And then we got some other terms that were totally different. And it was kind of frustrating because when we talked to them, they just kept pointing towards some personal debt that they needed to pay off. And as I'm working with the seller's representation, their agent, she just keeps telling me the same thing. Well, they've got some personal debt that they need to pay off. They've got some personal debt that they need to pay off. But to me, I'm like, hey, that's fine. We take that into account and understand that. However, that does not determine the price of the home. That does not determine the fair market value. That honestly, and it might seem mean to say, but that's not the buyer's problem. The buyer is trying to pay an appropriate, a fair value for this house. And so we weren't super far off, but just the motivation was a little bit difficult to work with. And, So I put that story out there just to remind you, as both a buyer and a seller. You as a buyer, you have to empathize with the seller. You have to understand the difference between a $10,000 check and $32 a month. But also you as a seller, this is really important because, and in this process, going back and forth, and when I explain this, hey, that value, the seller needs to has a certain net amount. Well, that's fine, but they've been sitting on the market 6 months at $1,500 a month. So we're talking, $7,500, $8,000. If they go another 3-4 months, you just add that up. Like, you would have been better to price it right and sell it quickly, and then you're getting that net and you're actually saving money and making more money off your sale. But that's why it's really important to work with an expert agent who deep dives the data and understands this stuff and can break it down to you and educate you so that you're making a decision that's really smart and puts more money in your pocket. But in working with them, look, man, I have a net amount when I'm selling a property. I want to make $1 million. But just because I want to make $1 million on this property does not mean that that's the fair market value for my house. The house is only worth what a seller and buyer are willing to pay for it. And 20 different buyers have passed up on this property to buy other properties in this exact community. So you as a seller, you got to start thinking, I hired my agent to help me out with this, but if they're really not breaking it down for me so that I can make a right decision, that's fine. And I understand some people are immovable. As an agent, I've worked with people where no matter how much I try to explain it to them and educate them, they really struggle with it. So that happens. But that's what I call the real estate kind of love triangle. And there's another side to think about as a buyer. Getting a house that has all three is very tough to do. It's basically a unicorn. I've got some people that I'm working with, and a lot of different people I've worked with. They kind of, I need it to be 5 minutes from work. Okay, great. We can do that. We can find you a house 5 minutes from work. We know exactly where those neighborhoods are. Okay, I want it to be move-in ready, and I want marble floors, and I want beautiful quartz cabinets, and I want the beautiful oak cabinets and quartz counters, and and I want a pool in the back. And I guarantee we can find that. I just told you 16,000 homes sold in Jacksonville last year. We can pretty much find you whatever you're looking for. Okay, and I want all this for $300,000. Okay, hold on a second. You just described a house that's close to your work. So it's going to be in a populated place. And so there's going to be a lot of demand for that house. And you just described a very expensive, nice house, but now you want it for under the value of, and this is just a made up example, but now you want it under the average value. It's just not going to do. So you've either got to look, okay, if that's the max of your budget, then you might find the house with that stuff, but it might be more than 5 minutes away. You might be looking at an hour commute. Okay. You might be moving way out to the suburbs to get a home with those features for that price. Or if 5 minutes from work is really important, we're going to have to give a little bit on those features. We're probably not going to find marble floors, maybe LVP if we're lucky, but probably carpet. Okay. So I try to break that down to people all the time. Buyers who are looking at the beaches, they want to be in a specific pocket and they want a certain price point. They want it move-in ready. A lot of the houses at the beach are starting to show their age. If not, they've been redone and they're very pricey. So you just kind of got to balance all that out. It's hard to find that. So keep that in mind. So both for you as a seller and a buyer, this little love triangle of price, condition, and location is really important. It's really hard to have all three. So you've got to have that in mind when you're shopping. Always work with an expert. They're going to be able to break that data down for you and kind of let you know what is what so you can make a good decision. But anyway, that's your market update for January and a little bit extra with the real estate love triangle. Thanks for listening to This is Jax.